You're using the wrong perks in Call of Duty Warzone. Watch this whole video to find out what changes you need to make. First, we're going to go over perk slot number 1. As you can see, double time is overwhelmingly the highest picked. But there's 2 other perks that we got to consider in this category, and I think it's time that double time loses its place as the overall highest pick on perk number 1. EOD used to be pretty popular, and that was because when Vanguard got integrated into Warzone, a lot of the weapons had the incendiary rounds on them, and they were way more powerful. But now that they've been nerfed, I think it's time for EOD to kind of move down the list as well. But there's 2 other things that we can look at. There's cold-blooded and there's quick fix. Cold-blooded can help combat the combat scout perk, ironically, and it helps you from not getting marked and targeted by, any AI, which doesn't really help in Warzone too much. I think since combat scout is definitely overpowered, you can definitely make a case for running cold-blooded, especially on Caldera. Also, I think we got to look at quick fix, and I really think that it should be highest on this list, especially for aggressive players. If you want something that'll help you push other teams and other players, I think quick fix is the one for you. If you have an aggressive play style, quick fix can help you if you need to regen your health really fast by throwing in a plate or by getting a kill. I think that we've been so conditioned to use double time just because that's what everybody uses. It helps us move around a lot quicker, but there's something to consider that puts double time kind of near the bottom. All of the perks that you can throw on the Vanguard weapons can kind of make double time obsolete. Using quick and fleet and stuff like that can really help your movement speed, and you don't really got to waste a perk slot to do so. So I would recommend trying out either cold-blooded or quick fix, but quick fix is definitely my highest ranking tier 1 perk. So next we're going to go over to perk number 2. And as you can see, overkill is just by far the most used. But there's a couple things that you should look at. So first of all, you notice the KD is a 1.03, but look at the rest of them. You see that tempered is a 1.08. Also, look at the win ratio. For tempered, we got a 3.97, and overkill, we only got a 2.42. What this is telling me is that a lot of people grab overkill for their first loadout, but then once they get that second loadout and actually make it to the end game, they actually win with the tempered, but they could actually have both at the same time. It's just the order in which they grab them. But that does make me think, maybe you should consider grabbing tempered your first loadout. There's plenty of good handguns right now that you could actually use, maybe a melee weapon, or you could just pick up some ground loot, because right now the ground loot is actually really good in certain areas. There's really good Coopers, there's really good SCGs on the ground. So maybe you could go ahead and go with that tempered and actually skip the overkill for your first. I will say Ghost is in second place. I think it should start coming down, in terms of ranking. I really don't think it's as good as it used to be, and they kind of nerfed it a little bit. And I think it's maybe time for Ghost to move its way down the list. Well, sliding down to slot number 3, we can see that Combat Scout is the most popular pick, but Amped is actually pretty close. I think this is one that people get right. I think that Shrapnel, Spotter, Tune-Up, Battle Hardened, and Tracker all really don't have their place. Tracker can be kind of useful, but it kind of makes you dependent on watching those footsteps and not using sounds and sight as well. And so I really think that Tracker can actually kind of get you in trouble. Combat Scout it's pretty good, and it's a little bit overpowered, I think. But if you notice, the KD and the win ratio are not quite as high as Amped. Amped really helps with that weapon swapping and quickness, and I think part of it is because Combat Scout is more for players that want to sit back and kind of maybe camp or just kind of hold an area, whereas Amped is going to be for those more aggressive players that like to go after the enemies and really get in and fight. And I think that's why the win ratio is higher, because those players that use Amped want to be up in there fighting, and I think they get rewarded for that. Now, if we come down to the graphs where they show the popularity of perks based on the last 10 days or so, we can see that a lot of these have really stayed the same for perk slot number 1. And I think that's because once you start to use a perk, you get used to it, and that's kind of what you stick with. but I want to see some of these lines changing as you take some of my advice and maybe try out something new. Once again, for Perk Slot 2, you see people are really using the same stuff that they've used for the last couple weeks, and I think that we need to make some changes here as well. Nothing crazy. I think Overkill will remain top, but I definitely think that Tempered should maybe take over the spot for Ghost in second place, even though there's that huge gap even between Ghost and the others, especially the gap between Overkill and everything else. We can also see a continuation of this, you know, the same pattern with Perk Slot number 3. People like to use the same things, and I think it's definitely time, especially with the huge update that recently came out. I think it's really time for you to change it up and to try something new. I think that especially here, I do think Amp should overtake Combat Scout. It's pretty close, but I think people get it right with the bottom 3. They should stay there. You shouldn't use them. I think they're a waste of a slot. Okay, so let's go ahead and summarize real fast. For perk number 1, I recommend that you use Quick Fix or Cold Blooded. For perk number 2, I recommend that you use Overkill or Tempered. And for perk number 3, I recommend that you use Combat Scout or Amped. I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great day.